Welcome back to Spotlight. I would like to introduce my guests. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Iria Smith-Forbes, speech and language pathologist in the Department of Education and Culture. Welcome to Spotlight.
Good night.
Yes. And Ms. Carolyn Stout-Igwe. She's a Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Social Development.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. And our very special guest from Kingwood Trust in the UK, Ms. Susan Osborne.
Good evening.
Welcome. A little later on, we're going to also have another guest, Ms. Dr. Sally Powis, also from the Kingwood Trust, and be talking to us about autism. I want to start with Ms. Igwe. Ms. Igwe, this is a new program. Just give us a little background about how it came about and how it developed, since we know of autism on a global level, but we didn't know of autism so much on a local level.
Okay. All right, thank you. Back in 2009, there was, I must talk about the current Ministry of Health involvement in this project. Back in 2009, a parent approached the government about providing funding for a son to travel to the UK to get assistance because the child had autism. At that point, we were put in contact with Kingwood Trust in the UK because because of the services that they provide. So in October 2009, we received a visit from Ms. Sue Osborne, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Kingwood Trust. And she came, she met with government officials, she met with parents, saw some of the persons with autism at the time, and basically told us what we needed to get done to incorporate or to start a program with autism for here in the Virgin Islands. And since that time, she was working very hard and seeing how she can assist us in even assisting us with funding. In 2011, a potential donor was identified in Barbados. The Maria Holler Memorial Trust was potential at that time. We submitted a proposal in May 2011, and in October 2011, we received approval of a proposal. And this proposal basically is funding a program for 2 years initially. The pilot phase is 2 years, where Kingwood would send out their officials to us in different intervals to train, build local capacity, so that by the time they're ready to leave, the BVI can take forward the program. So they're conducting assessments, they're training teachers throughout the territory, and basically providing services that we never had before.
Okay. Have we done any research to find at what level autism is in the territory in terms of the number of youngsters that have been diagnosed with the ailment?
We know that there are some children that have already been diagnosed, but I have the speech and language pathologist here who comes in contact with a number of our children on a regular basis. And based on some of the signs, some of the symptoms, that is what we are using as our benchmark at this point. But by June, when we are expected to be conducting formal assessments of all the children that we know about, and we are hoping that as we continue to raise awareness, maybe some other children will come forward. By that time, we will have some baseline data that as we go forward, we will know exactly what we are doing, the numbers that we are dealing with, so that we can better identify the types of professionals that we need to run the program long term.
Okay. And Ms. Smith-Forbes, what's going to be your role in the program?
Well, Mrs. Igwe is the one that will better be able to answer what my role will be. But currently, the kids that come through my office, once I see the signs and symptoms of autism, then I say to Ms. Dawson, well, Ms. Dawson, I think this one has autism, and that's how we actually got the list together.
So you are going to be the person on the ground and be in the education process, identifying youngsters as they come in contact with you.
Yes.
Now, you are in what school level? Primary school, secondary school? Are you in the office and people just come to you?
Well, I'm in the office. Sometimes they come to me, sometimes I go out in the field. I visit from the preschool level straight up to the high school level.
So is testing a standard procedure from your office, and so that everybody knows what is your office?
In terms of autism, I cannot diagnose. I can only identify and say, well, I suspect, and then it's left up to a team of professionals who will conduct the assessment. I know in the U.S., the main person that does it is probably a pediatric neuropsychologist, a developmental psychologist. They're the persons that mainly head the team in terms of forming a diagnosis for the kids with autism.
Okay. So when youngsters come to your office, what do they come for?
They come for communication issues. If they're not communicating, they're not speaking appropriately for their age levels. They have no speech whatsoever. Basically, those are the reasons why they would visit my office, and then sometimes based on their behaviors, then that's where I would say, well, this is going on, it's probably autism, or it's probably something else.
So as a speech pathologist, you have the ability to identify different ailments in a youngster other than a speech problem?
Yes, other than a speech problem. It could be language, it could be social behavior, yes.
Okay. And I want to bring you in now, Ms. Osborne. Kingwood Trust is an institution, a facility. What exactly is it?
No, it's a charity that was established by the mother and father of a child with autism. Mm-hmm. They found in the UK that there were really no services available. They were fortunate enough to have sufficient money to establish a service for him. They bought a house, they trained staff. They then thought that because of the experience they'd gained from looking after him, that they would extend that facility to other people in the locality that had autism. And then they decided they needed to set up a charity. So we are a charity that now supports about 50 adults with autism. Mainly people who are very challenging and have many of the very difficult symptoms of autism.
Okay, you said adults, and I don't know why I automatically start out thinking children, right? So it's a lot of adults have autism as well. As a matter of fact, you grow up with from a child with autism to an adult with autism.
It's a lifelong developmental problem.
Okay. So in your charity, you have a home where the persons live or they come to? How does the program administer?
We support people a few hours a week. We support people in their own homes, their family homes. We support people who have their own homes, who have rented accommodation, and we support them sometimes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It depends on the needs of the individual. So we actually support people. We go into people's homes, or we support them in their own homes or in their family homes.
How varied are the needs, and what are they?
It can be very varied. People with autism, in addition to the core issues around autism, people will sometimes have epilepsy, sometimes they have gut problems. So there's a range of disabilities that come along with autism. In addition, you do get depression, particularly. Obviously it's a very difficult condition, and people do suffer from depression and other mental health problems as well.
Okay, and the staff that you need to have in the training and the facilitating of the needs of autistic person, what sort of training they have to have?
The staff have to be very skilled. They have to have a basic understanding of autism. They obviously have to understand the kind of triggers for some challenging behaviours. They have to understand how to relate, how to help people to communicate with the world, how to interact with the world when actually they find that very difficult. They actually act as trainers for those individuals as well, trying to help them develop their life skills, personal skills, how to go out in the community.
How big a staff does the trust have?
We have 130 staff.
And you serve a total of
about 50.
About 50 people. Okay. Now, you're here in the BVI. What are you hoping to establish? What would an autism program look like here in the BVI?
Well, we're It's a kind of a really exciting project in the sense that we're hoping to have a broad program that goes from very young right through to the end of life. I think that's very important. In many parts of the world people have just concentrated on children or adults. Actually this program is about trying to assess a child from the beginning, trying to pick up when they have autism, and then provide programs for them, particularly in schools but also with the families, to then go on into adulthood to see whether people can actually develop skills that allow them to have much more meaningful lives, and for some that could be work. So it's really a cross-life program.
Okay. Is there a lifespan of persons with autism? How old can you get with the ailment?
My understanding is there's no evidence that people's lifespan is any shorter. So it can be a very average lifespan.
Okay. So are we going to need to have a place, or is the program going to be treating persons where they live?
I think it's going to be both. There will be a centre, but it's about providing support in schools, in people's homes, as well as in a centre. So it's all one of those places.
Okay. And you're going to bring staff here, or you're going to select persons from here and train them to how to manage the ailment?
It's about us helping to train local staff. I've got staff here to try and help with training and establish the service, but it's really about building the capacity within the BVI to carry on with the program.
Okay. You have identified persons in the BVI that is going to be trained?
Interesting. Well, recently, 2 weeks ago, we advertised for the program director for the program, and we will be conducting interviews this week. We are hoping that we can have the person appointed by mid-May, because we need the person to be positioned. We actually would like to send the person to the UK on an attachment with Kingwood for at least 2 weeks, and then when Kingwood returns in June for the assessments of the children, that person needs to be in place. We are going to have, there are some positions for trainee teachers, because you're going to need some people to work alongside the director. Initially, we also have a vacancy. We will have a vacancy for a special ed teacher. And the speech and language pathologist, the services of a speech and language pathologist are necessary for an autism program, as well as the services of an occupational therapist will be necessary for the program. But basically, once we have the assessments of the children, we're actually expecting that by September the center will be opened, and we're hoping that by the time we get all the assessments in, we would know exactly going forward what type of staff we need, because right now we are counting, that's why we're here with the Ministry of Education, because we're expecting to utilize the services of speech and language pathologists part-time initially, because Ms. Smith here is working with the Ministry of Education, but the Ministry of Health cannot do it alone. So basically, initially, we're going to be sharing, but as the needs of the students are identified, we recognize that there will be a need for full-time speech and language pathologists for the program. There will be a need for a full-time occupational therapist, but we're basically starting what we have, and with the intention of building as we go along.
Okay. So right now you don't know how many staff you're going to need, and you don't know.
But we do know this initial status setup. We do have, for example, the provision in the money that we have from the funding that we receive from MHM has provision for this speech and language pathologist and OT part-time basically, and 3 trainee teachers and a special ed teacher. And the program director, basically what we did in the new budget was we basically gave up a position at social development so that we can get a director position. We basically upgraded, renamed the position to get the program started.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the needs of the program, and if you're going to have a structure or building, a facility, and how it actually works, how the program works, infrastructure and mechanisms. We'll talk about that when we come back from this break. Just keep it locked right here to Spotlight. We'll be right back.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Tortola Concrete Limited, Gilbert's Painting Contractors, and CCT Global Communications.